Once upon a time in Rust, dedicated players were able to build insanely large castles. The size of the base was limited only by the amount of material you were willing to farm for it. Then, Building 3.0 was introduced in December 2017, and with it came the upkeep system. Without materials in the tool cupboard, your base would decay. Unfortunately, the amount of materials required per day grows exponentially with the size of the base, making huge bases prohibitively expensive. Even if a clan is willing to pay, for example, 23k metal fragments upkeep per day for a full metal Grand Frustrator, the TC would have to be refilled every 20 to 22 hours. In addition, losing the TC is one of the worst outcomes of a raid in Rust. It allows raiders to gain building privilege and take over your base or grief it. Before the upkeep system, TCs would radiate the building privilege. This means they could be placed in a way that building privilege overlapped. Today, the building blocks itself, that is the foundations, walls, etc., carry and extend the building privilege. The idea is that one set of building blocks, that is one base, should only have one TC. A solution to griefing, which I introduced in a somewhat cheesy video in May 2018, is to build external TCs just out of the range of the base, and then build from them towards your main base, so that the building privileges overlap. If raiders destroy the main TC, the building privilege from the outer TCs prevents them from taking over the base. However, that did not solve the problem with upkeep crippling huge bases. Until in September 2018, Vice revived wall stacking, a technique from pre-Building 3.0. By slightly offsetting building blocks, he was able to create a footprint out of 6 different parts, that apart from tiny gaps would combine into a single large structure. In October 2018, Fred and I showed you how to apply this technique to the Grand Frustrator, making the external TCs upkeep the honeycomb. This made the upkeep of the base drop from 17 to 12k metal fragments per day across all TCs. At the same time, if the TCs were full, the base could be left alone for 61 hours. Since that time, there has been much less activity around multi-TC bases on YouTube than I expected. Thus, I wanted to use July to work towards a new multi-TC base. Since this is a grand undertaking, I'll be doing it step by step. In this video, I'll document how to build 7 multi-TC footprints. It is intended to be a reference for a few classics and new footprints. Check the description for the timecodes where the explanations of the different footprints start. For the sake of brevity and simplicity, I'll only show you the footprints and place the TCs out in the open where I would recommend them to be. In game, you would of course need to protect them properly. Enjoy! This is the footprint that kicked it all off, introduced by Vice in September 2018. It consists of 6 separate parts that together form one large clan base. It is built around a hexagon core. Build out 8 square foundations, and come back with 4 triangle half moons. This will give you 6 offset squares around the center. For the TCs, you will need to build another 6 squares out for a total of 7. This footprint also neatly fits an external wall by going out with triangles in a straight line from each of the external TCs. This is the footprint of the multi-TC Grand Frustrator from my channel. Here, the external TCs are used to upkeep the honeycomb. The advantage of having a TC inside the core is that it allows you to claim the build site early. Start off with the core, which consists of a hexagon surrounded by 6 square foundations. Place a triangle into one of the gaps and build out 9 squares. Come back with 4 half moons. And place an upgraded square foundation flanked by a triangle left and right. For the external TCs, build 6 additional squares out for a total of 7. This footprint is another classic from one of Vice's streams. It builds up on the previous footprint, but the way the honeycomb is placed makes the gaps smaller. The double line of triangles makes it harder to disconnect the external TCs. Start off with a hexagon, add 6 squares, and fill in the gaps with 6 triangles. Then build this trick construct out of triangle, 2 squares, 2 triangles, square, triangle, and go out 8 squares. Come back with 4 half moons and add a triangle, a square, and then build the 2 triangles and 2 squares of the honeycomb. Build out in a double row of triangles. The TC needs to go on the 6th triangle, which are marked by upgrading the teeth to armored. In game, of course, you can leave those triangles sheet metal. If you build low walls in the center of the line, it'll be harder for raiders to disconnect the external TCs by rocketing the foundations. Please note there should have been a TC in the core, I simply forgot to place it. Here is one of the smaller viable footprints, which allows to build a multi-TC version of the original Frustrator. The core is a triangle surrounded by 3 squares. Build this shape between the gaps. From the triangle, build out 8 squares. Come back with 4 half moons. And finish off with a triangle flanked by 2 square foundations. Build the TC at least 6 squares out. close out the footprint with triangles. This footprint revives the idea of having a core without external TCs. Thanks to its compact size, it could bring the concept of multi-TC bases into the reach of smaller groups. From a triangle in the center, build out 9 squares from all 3 sides. Then come back with 4 half moons and add an upgraded square foundation. Build out an additional 6 for a total of 7 squares for the external TCs. Those triangles are a quick way to secure the core. Crim once showed me a footprint made from triangles only. I don't recall the details, so here's my take on it. Note how the arms of the external TCs are laid out to close off the gaps that might reveal the core. Start off with a hexagon surrounded by triangles. Place a triangle and build out 8 squares. Come back with 4 half moons plus 1 upgraded triangle. To each triangle, add 2 triangles on the right and 1 on the left. Then add 6 more triangles on the outer side. Build 6 half moons out from this side so that they cover the gaps. Place the TC on the 6th tooth, which here are marked visually through armored foundations. Remember, you don't actually have to upgrade those foundations. The last footprint is the most complicated. It combines 2 different types of external honeycomb and has an optional TC in the center. Place a TC onto a triangle, surrounded by 3 more triangles, then 2 squares on each side, and 6 more triangles to fill in the gaps. Add 2 squares and a triangle, then build out 8 squares. Come back with 4 half moons, and place an upgraded triangle at the end. From each triangle, build out at least 6 squares. To stack the squares, build out another 8 squares. Come back with 4 half moons and place 2 upgraded squares. For the external TCs, add 3, then 5 triangles. Then build 5 double squares out and a large triangle on the end. The TC goes inside the inner triangle. Complete the footprint with 6 squares coming out from the lone triangles. I hope you enjoyed this reference on multi-TC wall stacking footprints. If you have interesting footprints or concepts around multi-TC bases, now it's time to share them. My plan is to make more videos around this concept and maybe present a new multi-TC base soon. Until then, Evil Wurst out.